Hey everyone! In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a super indulgent chocolate fudge cake, or a chocolate fondant cake as we call them here in Europe. The chocolate I prefer does contain sugar, but I use no extra added sugar in this recipe whatsoever. In my heatproof bowl, I have 200 grams of semi-sweet chocolate at 54%, and I'm gradually melting it in the microwave. The intervals are between 10 and 15 seconds. Stir very well between the intervals to avoid burning the chocolate. And if you have access to really good sugar-free chocolate, then by all means use that. Once the chocolate's completely melted and you can no longer see small pieces, you can set the bowl aside for now. What makes this chocolate fudge cake so indulgent and rich are 250 grams of mascarpone at room temperature. And to that, I'm adding a generous teaspoon of vanilla bean paste. I'm gonna link to it in the description below. Mix the vanilla into the mascarpone with a soft silicone spatula until you have a light brown mixture that looks like this. It should be very fluffy by now. To add a little sweetness to my cake, I'm adding 40 grams of powdered erythritol that I sifted before. Now continue mixing until you have a homogeneous mixture. And now it's time to add the chocolate. Just make sure you give it a little stir before so the temperature is even throughout the mixture. Add all the chocolate at once, scrape the bowl so you don't miss anything, and then fold it in. Now if you find that your mixture starts to thicken too much at this point, you can pop the bowl in the microwave in 5-second intervals and mix between them. Once the mixture is homogeneous, it should look like this. And now is where we switch to a whisk. Add 4 eggs at room temperature, 2 at a time, and mix very well between them. And after the eggs are fully incorporated, you can add the remaining 2. Again, if you find that your mixture thickens, pop it in the microwave for a few seconds and give it a good stir until it has this very fluid consistency. And to make this cake hold its shape at room temperature, 20 grams of all-purpose flour, 20 grams of almond flour, and a tiny pinch of salt. Mix them very well before you add them to the chocolate mixture. Gently fold the dry ingredients into the chocolate mixture with the whisk. The reason why I'm doing this is to avoid creating lumps, but when you notice that there's no more flour visible, mix vigorously for a minute or so. At this point, it's important to switch back to the silicone spatula to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl and ensure a perfectly homogeneous mixture. I prefer to bake this cake in an 18 cm silicone mold, but if you don't have one, you can use a springform pan. Just make sure you grease it and then line it with parchment. Tap the mold or the pan against your work surface for a few times to release the big air bubbles. And then use your spatula to level the surface a bit. And while I do it, you can hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. This chocolate fudge cake bakes at 150 Celsius in a preheated oven with the fan setting on. And when you take it out of the oven, it should be very jiggly. Now let the chocolate fondant cool down to room temperature and then refrigerate it for 2 hours. Once it's cold, it's very easy to remove it from the mold. Simply cover the mold with a serving platter, flip it, and the cake falls onto it. That's it. And the same goes if you use the springform pan. You just have to unlatch the ring and peel away the parchment. And while this is not the prettiest of cakes, what it lacks in aesthetics, it definitely compensates in taste. And it's super easy to make. I like to give it a good cocoa dusting just before serving. But this is entirely optional, of course. However, I do like the extra chocolate kick and the texture. And it also improves the aesthetic situation a little bit, don't you think? This chocolate fudge cake is very rich and creamy, and even a small slice is very satiating. I like to enjoy this fudge cake with a small cup of freshly brewed coffee. And that's because coffee brings out the chocolate flavor like nothing else. And aside from its opulent taste and texture, what's so good about this cake is that you can be done with it within an hour. The only challenging part to this recipe is waiting for the cake to cool and set. I do hope you give this recipe a try and let me know in the comments below how it turns out for you. Until next time, dessert lovers!